Today's Golden Expo is going to go to a very, very special teacher that I believe has really thrown a giant, beautiful rock into our lake of consciousness, and someone who has made a massive difference in my teacher education program because I finally found somebody who understood visual thinking. I mean, this is the person that probably had the brain like our little Doogie Howser in The Good Doctor, where they use CGI to show diagrams and things in his brain, which I actually see in my head all the time, so I wish I had CGI to show you this stuff. Mary Poppins 2.0. But this is a guy that gets it, and he teaches it every single day. And he also uses thematic teaching through country music. So the state of Tennessee would like to thank you for being a great representative of what a teacher means in the state of Tennessee, who is out there every day teaching teachers, doing his thing in his own little way. And this Umi is a guy who creates graphic organizers in a sense of beauty. Like, he transformed my view of worksheets. Most people in the class had no idea what was going on. I got it. I was tapped in, connected, USB port, plugged. We would have class on Saturdays in my teacher education program at Tennessee Tech. And I had his class on Saturdays where it went the entire day. Now, he had his own little metaverse in his teaching, which taught me wonderful nonverbal things. He didn't care about time. Neither did I. I don't really value time. I have a very complicated view of time because I'm always feeling like hesitation is there, where I'm like, please just give me a minute. Just but I'm always like that. But he didn't care about time. I collect clocks because in schools, teachers, we are always clock-based. We have 45 minutes to make a really big point, send you on your way, and hope that you do something with it. So public speaking, we have to get really good at stump speeching for education. He's great at this. Brilliant. But time wasn't a factor. You just took it out. So we had all day Saturday to go to this seminar that he would teach, and it was on history in middle school and how to teach it and things. So, but he loves country music, and that's his passion. That's his rabbit hole, and it's incredible. He knows everything there is to know. He is a giant Google Drive of country music knowledge, and he teaches a special class in that, which is great. I've always wanted to take it. But we sat there, and we come in at like 8 o'clock, and there's all these people, newbie teachers, apple blossoms. We're all sitting there excited, and we've heard things. Everybody always does little market research on their teacher. That's why there are websites and things. But word of mouth that I'd heard is that Dr. Akenson, Dr. James Akenson, he was kind of the Mr. Rogers of the teacher ed program. He was kind of quirky, he was funny, and he was crazy smart. And people were kind of scared of him. They didn't know what to expect in his world. They felt unsafe, because they knew they were about to jump into somebody else's world where this person is wicked smart. And that kind of tapped into a lot for many people, because that kind of ties around with the idea of ego. And teacher ed programs obviously deal with the concept of ego because you're in higher education. And, okay, hard truth. A lot of people in teacher ed haven't been in a classroom in a really long time. They have some awesome talent. They love what they do. I thank you for all that you've taught us. I did have one professor that said exactly this. He's like, what? I've been out of the loop too long. Like, he saw, and he's like, I got to go back to middle school and go teach. Well, he used it as a jumping off point. He went back to middle school for, I think, like a trial year type of thing, just to give himself that perspective. And then he went and did some other really, really awesome things with it. And I commend him for that. And I wish we should hear more about those kinds of things. So to me, teacher ed programs are the place where we make the most change. In my world here with this podcast, I've created my own little teacher ed program, which the teachers are sort of the catalyst to teach everybody else about pedagogy, which is the science of teaching children. So that's what we learn in teacher ed school, is the science of teaching kids. Have you ever wondered what teachers learn about in teacher school? Well, I went around and did some first-person research and asked around. So I asked kids, I asked people in the neighborhood, everywhere. What do people learn in teacher education school? Get this. Okay, teachers, here we go. Put on your glasses of swift hand of wham on this one. By the way, I would like to commend another teacher recently. She will remain nameless, but there was a teacher yesterday that put the swift hand of wham upon somebody, and she was talking to a bunch of other teachers, and she had a Bowser she was talking about. And it was the coolest thing. All these teachers totally knew the language of the glasses, the power of the glasses. She took her reading glass. She's an English teacher. She, of course. And she took her glasses, put them on, and then, wow. Euphemistic, swift hand of wham. Well played. Great teacher. So in teacher ed programs, most people think, who are not teachers, they think that they learn to be mean and put on their glasses and then be mean. Yeah. So there's that. There's also that they learn to make bulletin boards. Okay. Yes, we learn to get a golden handheld stapler machine that we can easily make bulletin boards with. No. That we learn to write in cursive. Actually, I did have a class with Dr. Marsha Wyatt where she taught us how to write properly on the board, which was actually really helpful. Thank you for that. I said, so what about middle school teacher ed? Like, what do you actually talk about there? Well, puberty. I was like, okay, all right. Mental health. Okay. We didn't, but okay. And let's see, probably classroom management. Fair. Okay. All right. So tap, tap. When I was in a teacher ed program and all of my degrees that I've received, and that's, I guess, 3 now in teacher ed, I have never once had a classroom management class. And I asked this question. It's one of these where I would like get thrown out of the teacher ed building for asking this question, but I was like, why don't we have a classroom management class? Well, you can't teach that. You just have to learn it. What? Why? Why is a very dangerous word for me. So dangerous. Because it's something you learn through social experience. And then they went off and rattled off a bunch of teacher terms. I was like, okay, thank you. I didn't want to fight. So, and I certainly don't want to, disrespect anybody. So I was like, okay. Well, guess what? Here's MySpace. MySpace says that is not true. MySpace says that classroom management is simple mental health and sociology. All you need to know is behaviorism. Teachers are excellent behaviorists. And if you know behaviorism, you will know to see the signs of bad behavior. And so you can gently correct them into procedures like Dr. Harry Wong, who also Dr. Akenson taught me about. Dr. Harry Wong talked about in his book, The First Days of School, about procedural-based teaching. As an administrator, he's like, we have procedures. It's just what you do. You just follow the procedure because, if you want to be safe, that's what you do. He did not have rules. Rules are meant to be broken. Rules have the connotation of, I want to mess with that. I want to break it. Well, change the word. Use new words. So he said procedures. And it was much more comfy. I agree 100%. So Dr. Akenson had procedures. He talked about procedures all the time. He dropped that word constantly. He said, the procedure is you come in, you get this worksheet about the fire in Boston, I believe it was, and get your worksheet, have a seat, and put your name on it, get settled, whatever, get comfy, and off we go. He presented it like we're about to go on a ride. I love that. So instead of time, there was no clock. He drew a picture, like little dot to dots, and he put little dots every so many minutes. And then at the end, he would connect all the dots together. Beautiful. Great teaching. Clocks aren't so the deal. It's about step-by-step connecting the dots, integrated learning, whole concept understanding. I mean, all these big, wow, ideas. He's the professor at the top of the mountain. He was my Dumbledore that day. I was like, whoa. And so we're doing one worksheet for hours. People are freaking out. It's like hour number 4, and I am deep down in a rabbit hole of graphic organizers. I can tell you everything there is to know about this particular topic. The topic is actually irrelevant, but I could tell you the entire backstory. If someone made me write an essay that was 15 pages long about that topic, I could have done it without question and easily and happily because it was story-based. He taught with story-based teaching. We love stories. We adore stories. We will listen to a story. We don't want to listen to something out of a textbook in 1864. Yeah, what's the big deal, though? Like, why? What's the big, history is about people and relationships and really crazy choices people make in a bad state of mind. Hitler. Talk about mental health of Hitler. I always brought that up when I talked about the Holocaust and Anne Frank, because I was like, let's just think about the characters involved here and do a whole character study. Kind of loop all the way around the players. You can do it in reading, you can do it in social studies, you can do it in science. Get in the head of the person that made a discovery or did something terrible, if it needs to be that way to make that point. So Dr. Akenson did that kind of thing. He used allegorical teaching and storytelling and all these good things to make a point that It's a whole concept. Get the concept and move on. Little itty bitty nitpicky standards that are made by people who don't understand pedagogy, they don't make sense. They really don't. I'm not picking on you guys, but talk to teachers and look at Piaget about brain development. Dr. Akenson reminded me of this. You have to look at where the kid is in development. Piaget has given this. We need help to update it to a modern kid, but take that information, put the time into that. Then let's say, okay, let's take a look at this now. And now let's see how stories of our past, Gen X, we have so many great stories. We had great movies. We had all the stuff to pull from. An entire lexicon of pop culture knowledge to pull from. Okay? So Dr. Akenson was a master of this. He was absolute Obi-Wan Kenobi here. So Jedi. He's like, look, we can use positivity, inspiration, and creativity and visual thinking to explain things. And then the kid will bring home a worksheet with all kinds of little doodles and this and that, and he loved doodles. And I was like, thank you for understanding my doodle thing. School of the Arts totally got the doodle thing. They were great with that. Cornell notes with little doodle space on the sides. Fabulous. Fantastic. He understood the doodle factor because the whole class was one giant doodle. But with the doodles, you tell a story. And I always felt that my synthesis wasn't my doodles, it was my art, it was my processing time, it was my mental health. The doodle space on my piece of paper was saving me. That was my rescue. That was my lifesaver. You know, my candy lifesaver with the hole in it that was put there intentionally in case a kid swallows it and won't, die. 80s death thing. So, Dr. Akenson provided a safe, creative space where if you want to tap into it, you could just have Wonderland if you wanted. The problem is that most people don't have the stamina to keep up with that. And talking about big issues is really tiring because a lot of people aren't used to it. They're used to staying in the minutia of the day-to-day. It's kind of like when you're driving down the street and you're looking at the road, which is really important, and you're looking at all the other cars. Very, very present. Good. But on the horizon, you see the Great Smoky Mountains, and you're almost there. You're like, wow. But if you could just take a very brief millisecond to just look up and remember that that's there and coming, it's inspirational. You get out of this monotony zombie kind of way about things. I think we've kind of become a little zombie-ish. Neurotypicality to me is a bit of a zombie kind of world. It's safe, it's cozy, it's pizza. It's okay. Like, you can live on it. It's all right. But don't you want something else? Is it a little boring? Is it where frustration lives? And, if you eat cheese pizza every single day, all day long for the rest of your life, like little kids think that they want to do. But if you actually did it, do an experiment with a little kid and have them eat pizza every night for a week and see if they're over it. And then present something entirely new and freaky for them the next day, like Indian food or with all kinds of spices and veggies and, whatever, stir fry, whatever. But give them a totally different flavor. Use the senses for mental health. Neurotypical kids need to understand the power of the senses and the environment that they're in, and that creating an environment creates a world. Neurotypical people and neurodivergent people, everybody likes movies, everybody likes media, everybody likes pop culture. Movies are our way to go to different metaverses and escape. So we all have that capacity for divergency and creativity. So we just need to engage it, because sometimes we've been stuck in a kind of zombie mode of just driving, Joe versus the volcano kind of thing. And we just got to wake up. It's that ice bath. We just need an ice bath. We have capabilities that are far beyond any comprehension. Our brains can do so much more than we think. We just got to give it a shot. So Dr. Akenson was that teacher ed guy. He was the person that pedagogy made sense, because even though we spent hours doing it, most people were kind of like, I can't. So, 4 hours of that is a lot. That was a think tank for me. So 4 hours, I lost track of time. I was in the rabbit holes. Send food. But because most people weren't already engaged that way and practiced it for years, they lost touch a little. So we have to make it short and sweet, maybe more video-based things, what have you. Get someone like Dr. Akenson out there for the world to see. Have him make a case and prosecute the ideology that visual thinking is a good thing. You can picture things in your head and see them and follow them. I see graphic organizers in my head all the time. I read them. Conversations, I see them as roadmaps. It's like a choose your own adventure book. And I kind of play it like choose your own adventure. And I see a graphic organizer of a conversation, and then I use behaviorism to determine nonverbal language as well as verbal language, synthesize it as fast as possible, find any connections I have in my hippocampus for any pop culture knowledge or humor or anything I can do to make me a little bit less awkward, and then present it hopefully as coolly and non-awkwardly as possible, so on and so forth. So sensory things are really important, nonverbal things are really important, but to have that comfortability factor, he spoke my language. So time doesn't really become such a big issue, and neurodivergency encourages not worrying about time so much. So teacher ed is a little bit like the military. You know, you learn things as procedures, as Dr. Wong says. You know, Dr. Akenson comes along, throws in some creativity, some drawing, some mental health through the arts, and explain that graphic organizers help us to sort visual information in our brain. Big picture ideas. But we can make videos to show that, and people can take it in at their own pace. So maybe more teacher ed possibilities in the future could be more video-based learning, more connections with other teacher ed programs who are doing innovative things. There's a Center for Creative Studies that is existing out there. I see you. You're doing great stuff. We need to know what you're doing. Help us. So teachers are not great about asking for help. We are, but we're not. It depends on what it is. But when we really, really, really need help, it's kind of hard. Because it's, like in my case, when I need help, it's usually something kind of silly. Like, do you have a charger? How do you click this again? Where is this at in the software? Because it's just silly, silly little dumb things. Because I'm spending so much time up there in the clouds. Whoops. Put on the mask first. I'm not so good at that. So a little help is always good. But your neurodivergent friend just needs to be checked in on a little bit. But those of us who need to work on getting more into that zone, it's okay. Just feel safe there. It's fun. It really is fun. Fun. You miss fun. You're lonely for fun. Go find your Bing Bong. Go on Bing. Create him. Bing Bong. Imagination. I was thinking about that too. Bing Image Creator. That's your Bing Bong. Ooh. Word connection. Nice. So, Dr. Akenson, I salute you, sir. Thank you. Thank you for being the best teacher I've ever had in education. I would also like to give an additional award to Temple Grandin for providing a verbalization of her absolutely brilliant visual thinking that I saw in video in my special ed class in teacher ed. So, Temple Grandin, I salute you because your explanation of what you did to calm cattle in the ag community to help them be prepared for processing is brilliant. And you get it. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Grandin, because you were able to verbalize and were brave enough. Thank you for being a divergent who's brave enough to talk about your autism and embrace it as your superpower, and to not be apologetic about understanding that mental health isn't just human. Mental health is in the ag community, you know, the rabbit hole that she lived in, that is a beautiful farm out there. But she understood how the bigger picture worked and how cattle as their sociological, social structure, how their mental health works, how they work in a community. She looked at all the parts and said, hey, it's pretty easy to fix. So let me draw a picture in my head and come up with it. But one of the things, my takeaways from that video is not just awe, be in awe of my autism. No. It wasn't that. It was how completely logical it was. I was like, well, yeah. Like, I was impressed, but not impressed in the sense of, just hear me out, in the sense of like, yeah, well, duh, of course you would do that. If that was your topic, that's exactly what you would do. I totally get you. It wasn't a well, duh. It was more of the meaning of, I am so plugged in and get you. Like, of course. Things seem so simple and clear when you explain it from your point of view. What if I could be the same kind of person sitting in that desk watching that video in special ed, teacher ed class, undergrad? And I thought, what if I could be the person for teaching middle school that could do the same thing? Like, take my visual thinking and somehow weave it together to make it make sense to other people, make it palatable, make that spoonful of sugar type of thing, tap into my October 1st Julie Andrews-ness and say, what if I can possibly use Mr. Rogers and Mary Poppins as kind of a catalyst to talk to people about how making that seem so normal should be a thing. That could be a new baseline. Like Temple Grandin can be kind of a pioneer for us to say she was willing to take a huge chance and fight that horrible glossophobia she must have felt on public speaking, not the fear of shiny objects, but to take a risk and tell us what she thought and give her the time to do it without a clock. You know, the Prussian school method of getting us ready for factory work, that's why clocks are such a big thing. That's why the schedules work the way they do in a beautiful way. But maybe the concept is not about clocks, really. It's about concepts and understanding is what I'm getting at. Standards are a prison for that. If we can do more conceptualized teaching based on what children are developing at that particular time in life, we can rewrite standards. We could have less fighting over political stuff, federal versus state versus, everybody's versus. Well, community partnerships all over the map are the way. Understanding and talking and hearing other people's points of view, even if it's not so snuggly, is a good thing. I challenge you to challenge me without anger. I will just calm down and listen and be open to you without getting mad about my own personal sets of biases or views. We got to get beyond anger. You're angry because you care. Anger is not like good and evil. It's not like love and hate. That's not a thing. Hate is a part of love. Apathy is the opposite of love. So anger just means you really, 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 really care. You care so much you don't even know what to do and you freak out. You're just freaking out as a physical reaction of caring so much. You are the ultimate flaming Care Bear. So that's what I see. My visual thinking, I'm going to explain my visual thinking, which is hard. And it's weird, and it uses a lot of pop culture references. So hence the 80s. That's what I know, so that's what I use. Well, I picture this. Picture it, Sicily. Here we go. Imagine a Care Bear that is like Protest-A-Lot bear. It's maybe like purple and has like a little fist. And I think it's kind of a girl, like a girl power one, kind of Rosie the Riveter of Care Bears. But she's like lit on fire. So, someone's in flaming Care Bear mode. They're just passionate about something. So we just got to diffuse that and fire extinguish the poor little Care Bear and go back to production mode. That's where that anxiety spiral and Inside Out 2 is. That's kind of the flaming Care Bear moment. But Dr. Akenson was really good about that because he was patient like Mr. Rogers. So I didn't feel I could go into frustration mode, but it was safe still. But there's only just so much frustration you can go to before you switch to anger mode. But mental health in schools is not about being a therapist. It's not about diagnosing people and that kind of thing and going through those, data-driven theoretical models of therapy. That does work. That's their thing. We don't have to learn that as teachers. What we need to know are concepts because we are trying to create allegories and story-based learning so kids get stuff. So give us the takeaways. And the takeaways are this. Calming people down, using the arts or something that makes them take a minute to do something else to process is good. There you go. Procedure 1. Procedure 2. Understanding child development processes and where the brain is at, especially in middle school, is important. But respecting chemistry as a science is very, very critical because we're dealing with puberty and hormones. So adrenaline and how adrenaline works. So psychoeducation is extremely important to learn. We need to know more about the science of the brain. Full stop. Number 3, most people take things in threes pretty well, so I'm going to give you a third. Third, focusing teacher education around visual thinking and using the arts via visual thinking. Also, auditory storytelling, very important. Audible, all that kind of stuff is good. Maybe like history class, for example, history class where you have like a fake little digital candle and you turn off all the lights, you create the environment, create the space. You always create a space. It helps people go into the metaverse. So it's like a key. So put the lights down, whatever, create the space, however you need to do it. And just tell a story about someone in history, but don't give their name. And just talk about the cool stuff they did. And at the end, like smack them with, oh, that was Abe Lincoln, or what they were like as a kid. Or imagine that. Yesterday I used Romulus and Remus to talk to 2 twins about grief and losing their family, but being raised by wolves, you can learn a lot from them. And the kids totally got it. And they shook hands and promised that they would be brothers who would cry to each other and always be a team. where I'm going to work on in a couple weeks, making them start their own little kid version of a small business together so they learn that they can trust each other through the work they do together. That's how they're going to get through grief. So we can address mental health. We just got to go big. We got to go really big. So we need help to wake up a little bit and see things from Dr. Akenson's point of view and other neurodivergents. People like Temple Grandin, people like Walt Disney. Walt Disney is a really good one. I'm going to keep harping on him because he had such a truth and a kindness to him. Mr. Rogers, same thing. Those core values of who they are as people, that's the thing. Mr. Rogers was a minister, doctorate in theology. The show wasn't religious, but yet we learned more probably about God and spirituality than we maybe even did in church. I know I did, because he spoke my language and he knew how to talk to little kids. That was what he studied. That was his craft. And his Muppets were the neighborhood in his world. He created a metaverse for little kids to explain big topics. This is my metaverse to explain to adults, Gen Xers, those of us who grew up on a very steady diet of Mr. Rogers and 3-2-1 Contact and all those cool shows and Saturday morning cartoons where we learned big lessons, and Walt Disney movies that taught us all about mental health and how to cope. Tap into that. Wake it back up again. Hey kid, there you are. Yeah, now I see you. And now let's go do something about it, because we sit at the table. We are the players. Ready Player One, like I said, we are the players. And in a previous episode, I talked about having really creative-minded people based in Howard Gardner, those learning styles. Imagine a bunch of Dr. Akenson types sitting around the Department of Education reimagining middle school. Just focus on middle school first. Like, the first educational policy that we could make to start this process is flip middle school. Flip it into this creative-minded, divergent environment based in the arts, kind of like create an art school for everybody. Where at the end of the day, you have your processing time where it's mindful. It has mindfulness. This is the first time I've used that word. I've been trying to wait to use it because it really does mean a lot more than we think. It's a mindfulness-based culture for middle schoolers that's safe, where their hormones can do what they do, where they can learn to cope. It's a beautiful day to learn some coping mechanisms. So if you have teachers there, or team leaders, or somebody on that team for each grade who understands that big picture of mental health and how it applies, like Dr. Akenson did, we lower the temperature. And then those other issues of getting kids to where, we're worried about school safety and we're worried about shootings and kids are terrified. I mean, I hate to say it, but the shooting thing makes a really, really clear picture. And the shooting thing says that, this kid was lost and got down so far, so dark, and so deep that it was almost an unsavable situation. But what if, way back in the beginning in middle school, where some of these critical thinking topics start brewing and mental health becomes a real issue, and my elementary kids, most of the issues are like self-control and grief issues, like someone passes away, or maybe neglect, things like that. A lot of Maslow stuff in elementary school. It's not really big, complicated sort of things. Middle schoolers are critically thinking now, especially 7th and 8th graders. That is the height of puberty. So you're balancing massive amounts of testosterone or estrogen and all these different things. I mean, imagine what the power of testosterone. Yikes. Guys, I have no concept of what that must be like, but yikes. My estrogen was way out of line once, and I was nuts. I was the most volatile, yelly, screamy person. And I am not, like, Anger and we have a cool relationship. Like, his head's not on fire except when he has an idea. So, he's not angry and mean. He's angry and helpful. He's angry because there's a reason to be angry and we need to do something. But he doesn't get angry just to be angry. But in middle school, you kind of get that way because hormones just put you in a loop. Remember what that was like? Do you remember what puberty was like for you? The holy hell that was? And I'm using that word on purpose. Yikes. Ugh. Are you there, God? It's me, Margaret, all that. Ugh. Nobody wants to go through puberty again. Nobody. So let's prepare them a little better for it. Let's talk about it and make it normal. Change the word. The word is gross. I don't even like the word. You're going through change number 1. You're evolving. To figure out some other way to parse it, change the word so it's not so creepy. It's creepy. It's weird. Creepy and weird, no. Puberty, creepy, weird word. So they have all that. Give them a break. Know your players. Know your kids. Remember what it was like to feel that way with your hormones completely just bat crazy. Okay? Now, Think about all the stuff that the kids have to learn now, because our standards have snowballed into making kids have as much information downloaded into their brain as fast as possible to absolutely no level of understanding. Which is why they're bored, because understanding never happened, so creativity can't happen. They're basically just low-level memorizing stuff to spit it back out, which all of us understand because we've all been there. I do remember many a class where I had to memorize something on a note card, spit it back out for a test, and be like, oh, thank God. That was sort of like exposure therapy to stress. But now, they're doing like calculus in the 7th grade. They don't understand that. Come on. What 7th grader would understand calculus? Would you? But you're the ones making policy about it. Could you just stop and think about your own kid for a minute? Think about you as a kid. You know, I want anyone who works on educational policy to be forced into at least 1 hour of watching Mr. Rogers or talking to someone in mental health to discuss bringing out your little kid again. Bring out that middle 5th through 8th grader. You need to have that kid sit at the table and say, what do you need? With your knowledge that you've acquired along the way in college or with teacher ed or wherever else you came from. What made you the you now? You get a chance to talk to the middle school kid who was divergent and creative and had all this potential. What would you do to fix education in middle school for them? And I picked middle school specifically because of puberty. They are the most volatile. You know, we have to create a psych ward to go put middle schoolers in. Oh, thanks. So instead of Hogwarts, I get a psych ward. No disrespect to psych wards. They serve a very important purpose. Thank you for your service. But that's not where middle schoolers belong. That's not, like, we don't just ship them all to the psych ward. You may want to in your head, but that's not, we're doing this. This is what we're doing every day. Hello? It seems ludicrous. Big thinkers can find the ludicrous and not the awesome person, but maybe so. So maybe he can be a character too. Welcome. So Dr. Akenson made big points. Mr. Rogers made big points. Teacher education is something that doesn't necessarily require a degree. Pedagogy is the science of kids. The science of kids learning and how we can take that and mold that to the good, to the Jedi. We want to go Jedi, not Sith. And middle school is where that could happen. But think of the ripple effect, okay? Education from elementary school, they have all this wonderful happy learning. It's colorful, it's fun. They learn about play and fine motor skills and all the good stuff. Elementary teachers, thank you. Okay, so they are setting up the middle schoolers for us. Okay, so the middle schoolers, they do a great job. I've never had any complaints from middle school teachers about elementary teachers giving them a nice setup for the kids to continue on in middle school. So way to go, elementary teachers. High school teachers. Well, I dealt a lot with high school teachers in 8th grade because I was obviously getting the kids ready to go to a very big, mega high school. And it seemed terrifying. I wouldn't have wanted to go there. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff happening, but there's just the building was really it looked like a mall. Like it was the size of a mall. There was no food court, which should have had one. I think high schools should have food courts because you have to make choices, like lots of choices. Middle schoolers start the choice thing when critical thinking develops. You have to give middle schoolers lots and lots of choices because they don't want to make choices. So forcing them to make choices helps them in their self-development, their self-concept, all of that good stuff. So we don't have wishy-washy. You know, we want decisive people. Decisive people, it's hard to make decisions, but you have to do it. As a Libra myself, I am not good at this because my pro-con list is always equal. So this was a hard thing for me. So I'm telling you, I do wish I had that. So someone who I'm talking as my kid self, someone that could have helped me with that would have been good. Who, maybe didn't make me worry so much about time and made me feel safe that if I needed an extra day to do something, because I'm kind of trying to make it better, but I didn't get a chance to tell you that would be really helpful. Like, can I just have a day where clocks maybe are about class time because we have to keep the schedule? And it makes people feel safe to have a schedule. But homework, does it have to be tomorrow? Like, does it absolutely have to be by 10 a.m.? Do we have to have that timer? Oh, I hate the timer. Do we have to have the timer on the online test turned on and making you watch it? Oh, what are you doing? You're just, like, encouraging anxiety to show up? Have you just, like, sent her an invitation? Or hesitation, for that matter? And since hesitation can morph into other emotions, like, what is the timer doing? Does it prove that you understand something better because you have a timer? Rethink. Get bigger thinkers who understand that time is not essential. Because in a business, We're setting these kids up to have a job at Pixar. Let's say that's where the kid wants to go. They want to work at Pixar. My little kid self wanted to work at Pixar. So there you go. Okay, so Susie wants to work at Pixar. She wants to get from point A to point B. How am I going to do that? Okay, well, the thing is that I would want to tell her to give herself time to develop as much as she can learn about certain subjects, to understand that visual thinking is important, that looking at big pictures, I would give her the steps to get there. Here's how to do it. If I don't know, I'm going to go find out. So when she gets to high school, those high school teachers, what they always wanted out of me was that the 8th grade teacher needs to have done the exploration. Dig up the dirt. And dig up the dirt, read Holes from Louis Sachar, think about the big picture of the concept of wholes as a unit and what a whole really means. Its possibility, it's invigorating soil, it's inspirational, kind of go into all that deep stuff. That's, philosophy, spirituality, all that kind of morality stuff is hit by how you look at something as an allegory. Kind of like Mr. Rogers and Dr. Akenson. So look at the book Holes and say, well, this is digging up the soil for something new to grow. And let's see what grows. Because I have no idea what this bulb is, but we're going to plant it and see what happens. It's going to be awesome. So hope exists. And hope is a dangerous word at middle school. Hope, I've talked to kids a lot about hope. Hope is one of the most dangerous yet beautiful, blissful words out there, especially for divergent kids, because you would have expectation. If you make a promise as a divergent kid, I will tell you, you make me a promise, by God, you better keep that. I have a memory like an elephant. If you break a promise, I will remember this. I won't judge you for it, but it's there. It's always there. And sometimes when we can't express ourselves very well, we make those memories to tell us who's safe. So Dr. Akenson, I felt safe with him because what he said made sense. I was like, yep, okay, yeah, thank you. Thanks for saying it. Say what you need to say and give people Dr. Akenson that whole Saturday to explain his point. Because at the end of it, I promise you, it's going to facepalm you in a great way. Lots of marshmallows for everybody and glitter all over the room. We got there. We got to understanding. Oh. Went from scrambled eggs to oh. And that's the money. Every teacher knows that. The oh, wow, eureka moment. So Dr. Akenson, keep on keeping on, my friend. Listen to your country music. I hope that Dolly Parton someday and you can have a nice dinner, or Merle Haggard, someday you would have that opportunity to finally get to meet him. I don't know. But Dr. Akenson, I thank you. Thank you for being in the world. We need people like you. You're a pioneer. And to Temple Grandin, fist bump to you. Thank you. I appreciate your personal space, so I'll just give you a fist bump. Thank you. Thank you for your bravery. Thank you for taking a minute to explain yourself and for allowing the gift of what you know to bless us all. You're why they made a video about you, because you're one of those people worth making videos about. And your knowledge has changed all of us. We can learn a lot from divergent people. We just need to listen. Have a great day, everybody, and keep on being inspired. Pull out Dungeons & Dragons. It's time to play.